Now we will see the concept of user input in Python language. So now we will see that how we can take input from the user in Python language. In this program, we will see that how we can take input from the user and then we will just print the same. Till now we have learned that a value of the variable is given to us and we will just print the value that is given to us. But now we will just take the value of the variable from the user. So in the first line it is given that username is equal to input, and under the same it is given that enter username. And in the second line we are supposed to print the value of username with the text username is. Now let's check that what will be the output. The output will be, when we will just run the code, it will just give us the output as enter username. This will be the output of this program because we have mentioned input. It means that we are supposed to take input from the user. So it will give the output as enter username, and the user is supposed to give something as the input. Suppose I will give ABC 123 in the input. So after that, when I will just click enter, then the compiler will go to the second line, and this value ABC 123 will be the value of string username. Now it will print username is, because the statement is given as username is ABC 1 2 3. So what we have done, we have just taken the input from the user, and this input from the user will be the value of the given variable, and after that the printing statement will be same as we have studied earlier in the previous programs. So what we have learned in this program, that we will just demand the input from the user, and that input will be the value of this variable, and rest of the code will be same. Now we will see that how we can take input from the user, but this time this method will not work for us because it is given as enter a number. But how can compiler come to know that we are supposed to enter a number, and uh, number means some numeric values. But suppose I will just enter ABC 123 again. So it will work the same. It will give me output as number is ABC 123, but it will be a conflict for us because just suppose that you have given a text box to a user, and the text box is for entering the phone number. Then a user is not supposed to enter alphabets under the same, and it must be the concept that if a user is entering some text or alphabets, then the compiler must give an error. So it will be a conflict in this concept. So it will be a error for us because if we are trying to enter a number, and if it is working for alphabets too, then it will be a error concept for us. So let's check the solution for this conflict that we are getting for integer values and string values. So it is the solution for the same. In this program, we have added int and bracket for the same. Previously, we were writing input and enter a number, but now we have written int input. It means that the compiler will only accept the input of integer type, and if a user will try to give any other input, then it will give the error. So what will be the concept? If we will enter a number is the output of the given program, And if we will just enter the numeric values, suppose 1, 2 and 3, then the output will be number is 1, 2 and 3. But now let's come to the second case. Just imagine that a compiler is demanding for enter a number and the statement is int input enter a number. It means that we need to enter the integer values. Okay, but now we are entering the value as ABC123, which is not an integer value, it is the value of string type. So when we will just print the enter, it will just give the error to us because it is demanding for an integer value and we are giving a string value. So what we have learned from this program, in this program we have checked that if we are supposed to enter some integer value, then we will just change the statement from input enter a number to int input enter a number. So the compiler will come to know that uh, a user must enter the value of integer type unless the compiler will give the error. Now we will see that how we can take multiple user inputs from the user. In this program, we will print multiple statements for multiple times. In the first line, it is given that A1 is equal to int input enter first number. So it will just demand for enter first number, and after printing enter first number in the output, the compiler will stop and the compiler will wait for us just to enter some number. Suppose I will enter 10 under the output, and when I will click the enter, the value 10 will go to A1 and the value of A1 will be now 10. So what will be the value of A1? The value of A1 is 10 as entered by the user. Now, in the second line, it is written that A2 is equal to int input enter second number. So the compiler will stop again and just print enter second number and will just wait again for the user to just enter some input. Now a user has entered 20. So the value of A2 will be 20. Now, in the third line, it is sum is equal to A1 plus A2, which is 30. Now, it is print sum is 30. Okay, it is the difference between user input and already defined input. Here, the user has entered the input as 10 and input of A2 as 20. So, this sum is 30. And if we will enter the different input, then this sum value of sum will get changed. Here the value of A1 is 10 by default and the value of A2 is 20 by default. So every time when we will just run this piece of code, only this piece of code, then the output will be sum is 30 every time. But if we are demanding the input from the user, then the answer of the output will just depends upon the input given by the user. So what is the difference between this user input and already defined input? That here the user has given the input as 123 for A1 and 321 for A2. So the sum of 123 and 321 will be 444. But the default values that are given to A1 and A2, according to the same, the sum is only 30. It means that if the value is already defined under the program, then we cannot change the output of the program. But if we are demanding the value from the user, at that time the output will just depend upon the value entered by the user. In this program, we will see that how we can take more than two inputs from the user. So it means that we can take a multiple number of inputs from the user. In the first line, it will just print first number, and it will just wait for the user to just input something. And suppose user is entering 11, so the value of a1 is 11. Now it will print second number and just wait for the user for the input. And suppose the user is enter 22, so the value of a2 is 22. In the same way, it will just print third number and just wait for the user. And suppose user had entered 33, so the value of a3 is 33. In the same way, it will just demand for fourth number, which is 44 entered by the user, and the fifth number is 55 entered by the user. So these are the values that are entered by the user, not by us. So it will just calculate the value of sum, which is a1 plus a2 plus a3 plus a4 plus a5, and just give the output as sum is, and sum of 11 plus 22 plus 33 plus 44 plus 55 at this space. So what we have learned? We have learned that we can take multiple number of inputs from the user. It just depends on our need. So what we have learned? We have learned that we can define the value of integer or value of variable by default, which we have studied in all the previous programs till now. But now we have studied one more concept, uh, that we can define the default value of variable just by writing a1 is equal to 10. It is the default value of a1, that every time the value of a1 will be 10. But if we are writing a1 is equal to int input first number, it means that the compiler will demand from the user the value of a1, and the value entered by the user will be the value of a1. Thank you very much.